A weekend filled with bad weather underway for the Pacific Northwest, where you're already getting some heavy rain, wind, and even some snow. Hello, everyone. I'm Warren Madden. Welcome to this edition of Weather Center.
And I'm Jeff Morrow. It's been a very wet Friday rush hour in parts of the Northeast. And now you're wondering about Saturday's weather. Is that rain going to continue? Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at the stormy Pacific Northwest. In Portland, you're feeling the force of this latest storm. Rain started around daybreak and will remain pretty much steady and heavy through much of the night. You also continue fighting the wind, which was gusting earlier today to about 35 miles per hour. And of course, if it's gusting that high right there in Portland, you know that out at the coast, it's probably gusting even higher. And we'll show you just how high in a moment. But notice on this colorized infrared satellite picture, the flow of moisture coming right on into northwest Oregon and southwest Washington. That is where the brunt of the moisture is headed right now. That is where the heaviest rain is. But it is raining underneath some of these other clouds, even all the way down into northern California. It appears like the rain may be lessening a little bit out on the tip of the Olympic Peninsula, but the wind's still very feisty there as well. Then you notice the kind of mottled nature, dotted nature to the clouds, not a solid shield here. That's the cold, unstable air, which will be clipping northern areas of Washington as we head on through the next 24 hours. So this is the latest system, much stronger than the one we saw just 24 hours ago. Graphically depicted, again, the isobars very close together here, so that's an indication of the very strong southwesterly wind ahead of our front as it moves on in. And check out some of these wind gusts at Nettertz, Oregon, 72 miles an hour. And you can be pretty sure that most of these were along the coast. Bellingham, of course, is on the Puget Sound at 63. At Cape Blanco, which is normally an extremely windy place, 60 miles an hour. So some very gusty winds. And of course, that kind of wind is going to kick up a lot of surf. Gale warnings up all along the coast. It was close to being storm warnings with 55 mile an hour plus winds. However, they kept it at gale warnings. And of course, that wind's kicking up a lot of high surf from Point St. George, California, all the way up to Cape Flattery there at the mouth of the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Here's a look at where we can expect the rain and the snow. The snow, of course, here in the Cascades. Snow levels generally about 4,500 feet and higher. Let's show you where it was snowing earlier today around the Snoqualmie Pass vicinity. This is where I-90 goes up and over the Cascade Range. It has changed over to all rain here. I noticed that Stampede Pass, which is a little higher in elevation, it is 32 and heavy rain at the present time. So all this snow that fell is going to be melting and washing and running down off the slopes and maybe causing some flooding problems as we head on through the next 24 hours. There you can see that last picture. It had changed over to rain. It is still raining up there at Snoqualmie and Stevens, but not before 10 inches of snow fell. Now you have to head higher in elevation till you get into the snow. And our Portland radar keeps blinking in and out here, but it's a pretty solid shield of rain from the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, right on down through parts of Oregon. And again, even into northwest California, although snow levels here up over about 6,000 feet at the present time. There's your snow, heaviest as we head into the higher elevations. And you know what? We're not done yet, folks. There is more waiting in the wings. Look at this flow of moisture coming arrow straight right into the Pacific Northwest. It's going to be stormy right on into early next week. Now let's take a look at the rest of the nation's weather. A little bit more tranquil than what we looked at here. Here's Warren.
Well, thanks, Jeff. We head into the rest of the nation. And the big story, the center of the country quiet, but the eastern side of the country seeing some wet weather with a front slowly pushing its way along the eastern seaboard and draping down into the Gulf, and a little bit of snowy weather here in the central Great Lakes. We bring it into the Northeast and the Great Lakes here as we start off our look at the weather in the eastern half of the nation. And that front just eking its way along ever so slowly should clear off the coast during the day on Saturday. But right now, we're still seeing rain, some moderate rain at Portland, Boston seeing some light rain, also around New York City and heading down toward the Philadelphia area. We'll head a little farther south ourselves, and we can see that rain here extending from Philadelphia through Washington, D.C. And then notice it starts dying out the farther south you get. Norfolk reporting some precipitation, but once you get down into North and South Carolina, things pretty much dying out and not nearly as much rain. The problem is snow as we come back into Michigan, seeing some light snow anywhere from around the Straits of Mackinac, reaching down not quite to Detroit, although Lansing reporting a mix and a bit of freezing rain and sleet, so watch out and around the capital of the state of Michigan. In the southeast, that front does continue on down. Most of the rain, though, offshore. We take a couple of peeks here, and you can see that the rain has really diminished across Georgia and Alabama over the last couple of hours, and likewise, most of it off the coast of Texas, but we may see a few showers places like Victoria, Corpus Christi, heading down towards Brownsville. Temperatures today ahead of the front quite mild, 13 degrees above average in Washington, D.C., but Chicago 11 degrees below average. Boy, it was chilly out there. In fact, you were feeling frozen on this Friday all day in Chicago with overcast skies, a chilly breeze, temperatures in the middle 30s rather, which wasn't quite freezing, but close enough that you had to be bundled up as you headed about. Right now, 34 in Chicago, but nice day in Miami, 78 right now. We put it all back together for you. We're talking about some not so great weather in the Northeast with some details. Here's Jeff.
All right, well, we got a cool down coming here. In fact, the cool down already underway. During this morning hour, these were the actual lows and these are the average highs. So our lows were actually near or slightly above the average highs. That's because we were just ahead of our cold front. But now the front is going to be sweeping offshore as we head on into Saturday afternoon. And you know what? We're going to get back to more typical weather for this time of the year. We will have some sunshine, places like Boston down in New York with a little bit of wet snow trying to fly up here in the upstate of New York and into extreme northern areas of New England. But highs generally in the 30s and 40s to perhaps near 50. And it'll be a little bit windy, so we're going to have to deal with a bit of a wind chill factor. So all that mild weather we've been having the last day or so, it's out the window, so to speak, and in comes the cooler air with a high of 47 in Boston, 47 in New York. Windy conditions, as I mentioned, 48 is the high in Philly. We're talking about 30s as we head into northern areas of New England with some light rain and or snow showers, nothing that's going to cause too many travel problems, but you could get buffeted around if you're out and about. If you go to a football game, expect there to be a lot of wind up in the stands. Right now, let's get a look at the rest of the nation's forecast on this November Saturday. Let's go back to Warren.
Thanks, Jeff. We send it to the southeast, and we're going to be seeing a few showers. Perhaps if you're visiting Orlando starting a Thanksgiving week vacation, you might want to have that umbrella as you head on and around town because it could be a little showery. Likewise around Brownsville, but farther to the north, not looking bad in Atlanta and Memphis. 59 should do it for the high in Atlanta. Wind will also be a problem across the plains in the upper Midwest during the day on Saturday. Quite windy, but mild. Look at Cheyenne, 62 degrees for a high here in the middle of November. The downsloping winds causing that. West Coast, while the southwest looks pretty good, showers moving into San Francisco for the evening, and you're going to be dealing with wind and rain in Seattle and Portland right on through the day. Now here's the big picture. High pressure dominating the center of the country, and as that front pushes off to the east, off the east coast, things should be quieting down as the rain heads out to sea. Same thing for midday in the afternoon, but wow, look at how tightly packed these isobars are. Lots of wind. We're talking the possibility of wind gusts up over 50 and 60 miles an hour downslope of the Rockies on the eastern side of the Rockies. By the early evening hours, we could see some showers in the Rio Grande Valley, but the main area of rain will be anywhere from the northwest, where it'll be showery, down into northern California, where it'll be more steady. Heaviest amounts of rain through mid-morning Saturday will be along the Pacific Northwest coast, where we could see up to an inch of precipitation, and in some cases, maybe even a little more. And Saturday's low is dropping into the teens and single digits in the upper Midwest, but warming into the 60s and even some 70s in the plains as we progress through the day.
Well, up next, we'll show you where wet roads may affect your weekend travel plans.
Indeed, we will. Stay with us. TravelWise is coming up right after your local forecast.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel. For your free copy of the Bible. It's a gift from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
In life, there are some things you can time perfectly, and some you can't, like the market. That's why I invest for the long term.
Oppenheimer Funds, the right way to invest.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
Weekend filled with bad weather is underway in the Pacific Northwest, where you've already gotten some heavy rain, wind, and some snow. Hello, everyone. I'm Warren Madden. Welcome to this edition of Weather Center.
And I'm Jeff Morrow. It's been a very wet Friday rush hour in your old stomping grounds in the Northeast. Up there in Boston and New York, and it's still raining. You're probably wondering, how about Saturday? What's that going to be like? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, let's take a trip to the stormy Northwest. Well, figuratively, I guess. We'll just take you out there on the video. Portland, Oregon, yow, what an ugly day. Look at the wind whipping the awning there. Rain started around daybreak, and, well, you had rain early yesterday, and then it let up a little last night, and then the rain came right back in, only harder this time. Definitely a day for the umbrella, and you had to be careful it didn't turn inside out because the winds were gusting at times to 35 miles an hour. And you know, if they were gusting that strongly in Portland itself, they were even stronger right out here on the coast. And indeed, we had some winds gusting 40, 50, 60, close to 70 miles an hour. So, yeah, this is a strong storm, definitely stronger than the one that went through yesterday. And potentially, we could even have a stronger one late in the weekend and on into early next week. So the stormy pattern is set up here. Look at this flow coming right in off the Pacific Ocean, aimed primarily, it seems like, into Oregon and southern areas of Washington State. Some of the clouds spilling over here to the east look pretty impressive too, but those are just high cirrus clouds at the present time. Notice all the lines on the map very close together. Those are isobars, or lines of equal pressure, and when you get these lines very close on our map, that means the winds, they are a-howling, and indeed they were today. 72 mile an hour wind gust at Netterts, Sea Lion Cave, 66. I just checked the latest. Sea Lion Cave's now gusting upwards of 60, so it's still pretty strong there. And Astoria coming in at 60, Cape Blanco farther down the coast, which is right about in here, at about 60 miles an hour as well. Gale warnings up along the entire Washington, Oregon, and the northern California coast down to Point St. George. And of course, the swell's very high. In fact, this could be a very significant wave action coming in here with swells of 20 feet to maybe occasional swells of 25 to 30 feet offshore, crashing inland. So this is going to be pretty significant. I would not go out in the water, definitely. As far as the traveling inland, it's going to be mainly a rain event here, unless you're at the highest elevations in the mountains. Let's take you out to Snoqualmie Pass, where the snow was definitely coming down today, but it did change over to rain eventually. And as the video goes on here, you'll see that where the video was shot, it changes over to rain, and all this snow that fell, which was about 10 inches worth, eventually melted away and washed away and is now running down the slopes of the Cascades, which may increase the flooding threat here. There's the rain. All right, snow levels about 5,000 to maybe 5,500 feet by later tonight. You can see all the moisture continuing to pour in and still coming into northwest California as well. Snow, again, as I mentioned, could be heavy, but above about 5,000 feet or so. And you know what? More is on the way. Jet stream flow coming right into the Pacific Northwest. Warren?
All right, we head to the eastern United States, where we still have that frontal system pushing slowly along the east coast and trailing into the Gulf Coast area, and behind it another trough bringing some snow into Michigan right now. Let's start it off in the northeast and mid-Atlantic, where I can tell you we're seeing rain right now from anywhere around down East Maine through Boston, moderate rain at Worcester right now, some light rain continuing New York City. And as we head southbound, we also have the rain going on around Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., moderate rain at Ronald Reagan National Airport right now, and some light rain around Newport News. But then you get into the Carolinas, things quiet down. Big time. We'll get to the southeast momentarily. Wanted to come over here into Michigan and let you know that we are seeing snow across much of the lower peninsula. Some sleet at Lansing right now. Detroit, you're just starting to see some rain. So hopefully it'll stay rain for you and not see that turn over to snow and make the roads slick for your Saturday shopping excursions. But farther to the north, watch out. Snow in places like Kalamazoo heading up toward Traverse City. In the southeast, as I mentioned, it really dies out. The rain does along the front. Much of what is there is offshore. In fact, you can see here, not much at all showing across the southeast right now. And the Texas Gulf Coast, quiet, although not too far offshore Brownsville, there are some thunderstorms rumbling. Temperatures during the day on Friday were ahead of the front, quite mild. Behind the front, much chillier. For example, Chicago, 11 degrees below average. And in fact, it was a chilly day right on through the day. You had that frozen feeling on this Friday. A nasty day to be out with overcast skies, a chilly breeze, temperatures only in the middle 30s. So it wasn't quite freezing, but certainly cold enough that you had to bundle up if you were trudging around the city. Right now, temperature of 34 in the Windy City, but still hanging in at 50 at New York and Washington, D.C. Here's the big picture. We start telling you about the Northwest. We also have that front in the Northeast heading down to the Southeast. And speaking of the Northeast, some changes in the air, right, Jeff?
Definitely, Warren, some big changes in the air as the cold front goes on by. But this morning, the lows were actually near what an average high is this time of the year. The averages in the yellow, what our actual lows were in the blue. So a little bit balmy, but that's all coming to an end as the front shifts offshore rather quickly. By Saturday afternoon, it's way offshore. Much chillier air has come in behind the front.
Wet weather could be here to stay a while for the Pacific Northwest, and the rest of the country looks to dry off in some areas. Hope it happens. Welcome to Weather Center, being brought to you by GMC Parts. I'm Paul Emick.
And I'm Sharon Result. And the Northeast is looking at a little bit more precipitation through the night, but most of that should be moving off. In the meantime, the strong Pacific storm that is making things miserable in the Northwest will continue to be a factor for some days to come. Already, it has caused a few problems. The storm is being blamed for flooding in parts of the coastal regions of Oregon. This is Clatsop County in the northwest corner of the state, where parts of Highway 101 were underwater today. The flooding here is caused by runoff from surrounding mountains. And snow was a hazard for drivers this morning on I-90 at Snoqualmie Pass, Washington. Several inches fell overnight here, less than 50 miles east of Seattle. As the day wore on, it turned to rain, causing slushy conditions on the roadways. We had reports of up to 10 inches around Stevens Pass, 10 inches of snow around Stevens Pass before it all changed to rain. And around Stampede Pass, we're kind of fluctuating between rain and snow at this time. And we have temperatures now around 33 degrees. Here's a look at the rainfall amounts thus far. These are the 24-hour totals, and we'll be continuing to update this, not just in through the night, but into tomorrow night and the next night. Well, we've got an onshore flow and a continuing pattern here that's going to keep things wet in the Northwest. So stay tuned. To be continued, we should add to the bottom of this particular graphic. Let's go ahead and take a look at some radars, and we'll show you first what it looks like in the Pacific Northwest from Seattle back down into Portland. I had a little blip there where something disappeared around Portland, but that's just the radar kicking in and out. As you can see, it's a solid line of precipitation that extends all the way down to Mount Shasta and Eureka, California. And with time, as we head toward the weekend, well, you know what? Some of that rain is going to reach down into the Bay Area before the weekend is through, so be prepared for that. As we look at the big picture, it's not just the rain, but the snow also. And with this continued onshore flow, we're likely to find the potential for some pretty heavy snow. It's expected that we might see some winter storm watches issued for Saturday night and perhaps on into Sunday, as we start to see more of this westerly flow, getting the orographic lifting from the mountains. And we'll be talking about significant amounts of snow in the Olympics and Cascades. Right now we're dealing with a front that is just offshore. Once this passes on through, precipitation likely will become just a little bit more widely scattered. There's a look at the winds, which are also a factor with this particular storm. We've had some pretty strong wind gusts up to around 72 miles per hour, and very heavy surf, and that's certainly a significant problem for mariners trying to get out there and do their business. And you're going to find some waves up to 25 feet. So your travel weather again is wet, it's windy, and it's snowy as you head into the higher elevations. Those snow levels, by the way, will continue to drop. In the meantime, we've got that onshore system and plenty of moisture out here in the Pacific, so plan on some wet weather right on through the weekend. Paul?
Let's have a look at the happenings and why specifically we're dealing with so many problems in the Pacific. Persistent precipitation problems in the Pacific. A lot of P's there, a lot of wet weather coming down. Pretty strong jet. That upper level system is responsible for keeping a lot of moisture moving our way. That's the happenings. Even close to the surface, we've got a lot of moisture flying in. Here's a front, another lifter on the way. Plus we have something else happening, orographic lift. Take a batch of moisture, start to shove it up some high elevations. It can't go around it, over and under. It has to go up and over. Adiabatically, it's cooled off. That means it gets the extra squeeze to it.